Welcome, everyone. Council time agenda here this Wednesday, October 1st, 2025. We'll start with the roll call.
Councillor Young,
Here.
Councillor Fuentes,
Here.
Councillor Little,
Here.
Chair Marshall,
Here.
and Councillor Belcott is
Present.
online.
Present,
I'm
yes.
sorry, I didn't see you there. My apologies.
I thought it rolled around to me really a little quicker than usual. So, okay, are there any amendments to the agenda?
None today.
Thank you. We'll open it to public comments, and just a reminder for folks, you're limited to 3 minutes with your comments. Comment on agenda items only, and rather than read through my long description here, please keep it civil and don't call anyone any names. So, is there anyone that signed up?
We do, Chair. We have Patty Reynolds.
Please come forward.
Hi, I'm Patty Reynolds, and I'm here to speak to item 4.2 on today's agenda, the current and future use of Camp Bonneville. I would also ask you to look closely at an email you received from Ann Shaw last night, as it expands on much of what I'm squeezing into my 3-minute public comment. The reuse plan of 1996 was designed, revamped, and formalized based on a decision by the Army and the county to transfer the land as an economic conveyance. When the county leadership made the decision to instead accept the land as a conservation conveyance, the economic focus of the reuse plan did not change, other than to add the amendment explaining that the conveyance of natural resources required 2/3 of the land to be maintained as predominantly open space and wildlife preservation, and 1/3 to be recreational while still preserving the natural resources of the area. The economically focused reuse plan never included storage or detonation of explosives. Nothing in this plan authorized any sheriff to sign agreements with other law enforcement agencies. In spite of this, multiple law enforcement agencies continue to use and contaminate this land at county expense and without any benefit to the county residents. Although an obviously out of scope ATF agreement that expired in 2017 shows another example of inappropriate, non-contracted, and free utilization of the county-owned land. The reuse plan has been ignored and misguided those attempting to find the necessary and affordable methods for cleanup, remediation, and clearly defined conservation conveyance requirements. It's time to remove all explosives and deny future access of SWAT, ATF, and the MEDU as they continue to delay cleanup and exploit county land without regulation nor payment. It's time to assess the costs of past usage and contamination and demand payment by those entities rather than hand the extra cleanup costs over to the county taxpayers. It's time to rewrite the existing outdated and incorrectly focused reuse plan that will complete cleanup, confirm a monitoring plan to protect the land and the neighborhood, and recreate the Citizens Advisory Group to help the county recoup the lost public trust and balance a regional park with the surrounding rural community, our infrastructure, and our character. Thanks.
Thank you.
Ann Shaw.
Councilors, the use of Camp Bonneville by ATF, SWAT, and MEDU is inappropriate and has cost Clark County money. Camp Bonneville was gifted to the county under the terms of a BRAC conservation conveyance that explicitly states the property is to be used for the conservation of natural resources. There are no provisions in the conservation conveyance that allows for the storage or detonation of explosives by law enforcement. This means that all explosives, as well as all containers used to store explosives, must be removed from the property. An ATF agreement with CCSO expired in 2017, yet ATF's use of the property was never terminated. In addition, neither CCSO nor any sheriff has ever had the authority to sign an agreement with ATF or any other law enforcement agency to use Camp Bonneville. ATF has never paid compensation to Clark County to store or detonate explosives at Camp Bonneville, nor to use the firing range. The extent of activities ATF has conducted on the property is unknown, including if ATF has ever detonated explosives that contaminated the property. Storing explosives at Camp Bonneville is an attractive nuisance that invites more thefts and further endangering local citizens. As reported in the county's own frequently asked questions about Camp Bonneville, SWAT teams have routinely used the property for ATV training, navigation training, group runs, vehicle stop procedures, and other kinds of trainings. This expansive use of Camp Bonneville has never been authorized in any agreement, and off-the-cuff approvals by county staff for other training events has violated the terms of the cleanup and further eroded public trust. In addition, records indicate that SWAT training has not been limited to regional SWAT teams, but regularly includes FBI SWAT. Any SWAT agreement may create a backdoor that will allow the FBI continued use of the property. The county has received no compensation from SWAT to use the property, nor has SWAT provided funds to remediate contaminations or other environmental damage that resulted from their activities. There is no record of MEDU use agreement, yet MEDU has used Camp Bonneville as a disposal location to detonate explosives and has never provided any funds to clean up the contamination from these explosions. For decades, Clark County has never been compensated for expenses that support ATF, SWAT, and MEDU's use of Camp Bonneville. These organizations have introduced unknown amounts of contamination and caused environmental damage to a conservation property. Clark County citizens will now foot the bill to clean up decades of contamination and repair the damage from ATF, SWAT, and MEDU activities. It is time to terminate ATF, SWAT, and MEDU's use of Camp Bonneville and to remove all explosives along with all containers used to store explosives from the property.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Greg Shaw.
Good afternoon. A few brief comments on agenda item 4.2. These are sort of bullet points. One, I urge you to direct the manager to end all uses of Camp Bonneville for SWAT, ATF, and MEDU. Two, SWAT. You need for staff to define SWAT. There's regional SWAT, CCSO SWAT, and FBI SWAT. In the documents, it's totally unclear what's being referred to. ATF. The 2013 ATF agreement was set up by a former county sheriff who had no authority but great chutzpah in signing a contractual agreement with a federal agency for the use of county property over which he had no authority. It expired in 2018 and should not be extended. The sheriff's ATF agreement shoehorned in authority for MEDU to use Camp Bonneville. 5, MEDU, there's no possible element in the conservation conveyance or even in the favorite staff lodestone, the reuse plan, for the storage or detonation of explosives at Camp Bonneville. None. The Army transferred the property to Clark County to remove explosives, not to stockpile or detonate them. None of these agencies have paid a dime for the use of this conservation area or agreed to compensate the county for the follow-on required remedial investigation feasibility studies to clean up toxic waste or UXO left in their wake. Once you direct that such activities cease and the agencies have removed any equipment, structures, or materials, the county will need to hire a qualified company to conduct the necessary investigations and then formalize a cleanup action plan for ecology to review and approval so contamination can be removed. This will cost a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Related set of issues to the agenda item. Since not a single counselor has told the public the content of your secret meetings with the FBI, not a single one of the 5 of you, the public remains in the dark about what threats, promises, inducements, new information, or non-disclosure agreements may impact your decisions on ATF, SWAT, or MEDU. No FBI work session could answer these questions. Counselor reports is item 6 on today's agenda. There will be no better time than today to be open and honest with your constituents about this. Finally, with due respect, in the wake of yesterday's declarations by the President and the Secretary of, I can't say it, War, that the mission of the former Department of Defense is now refocused on support to the ongoing Homeland Security, ICE, FBI, ATF immigration program, I ask that you consider the need for the recusal of any counselor who is employed by or under contract to the Department of War from any action on any contract, use agreement, or other relationship with the agencies under review today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex Luna.
Hello. I'm here today to urge you to end all law enforcement training at Camp Bonneville and return it to its original purpose, which is conservation. The cleanup isn't complete and the site is not safe for intensive use, but we've learned that law enforcement is continuing to use explosives and chemical agents there. This contradicts the conservation deed, threatens the cleanup, increases risk of wildfire and groundwater contamination. Our community needs resilient forests to face climate change, not a bombing range or a war zone practice site. Our forests are worth more standing and healed than they are used for this purpose. While our law enforcement agencies need a place to train, an active, highly contaminated site is not it. Please vote no on any new law enforcement agreements. Focus every resource that we have on cleanup of this site so it can become the natural refuge our community was promised and deserves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carmen De Leon.
Hi, I'm Carmen De Leon. I also go by Mello, and we got a whole bunch of stuff on here. And the only thing I want to say about this camp thing is the only people really watching it were the thieves. That's why they made off with thousands and thousands of dollars of ammunition. And if it's really a danger to the environment, I'm pretty sure there's desert land that's dead already where you can do all the exploding you want. I'm just saying I'm no expert. But anyways, according to, let's see, 8.2 C-Tran. Okay, C-Tran has what, 50 buses, hundreds of stops? And you got this mayor over here pushing that light rail is going to fix it with 2 stops? How does the logic, where's the brain there? How are 2 stops going to fix the hundreds of stops all over Clark County? Do you see the waste of money that the city of Vancouver is trying to push on people? They're trying to say, oh, the max is the bar, whatever. The light rail is going to fix our bus system. Really? Really? So you're going to add hundreds of max stops in Vancouver? 100 max stops to compensate for the hundreds of C-Tran stops. That, by the way, the buses are empty. I just got on the bus. I counted seats. It's about 30, 40 capacity, and there was 2 of us. And that was crowded. So anyways, what else is on here? Oh, you guys want to do a memorial wall for, I don't know who, but I just want to say, this is where she comes into play. You've lost the public trust. That's why there's nobody here. I'm naive. I trusted. And now she's trumped up charges, made up this stuff to get me in trouble. That's fine. Court of law is going to decide that in the real world, you know. But like she said, nobody trusts you guys, and there's a reason. The FBI is doing whatever they want on that land. Hey, officials can do whatever they want and not suffer the consequences, huh? Your hands are clean, huh? That's not right. People are afraid to come here and talk, and now I've been already, you know, getting in trouble for nothing. Like I said, I don't want to repeat that, waste my time on her. I'll go ahead and talk about this memorial wall. Why don't you spend the money on homeless so we'll get less people dying? You know, I mean, this is why people don't trust you. You have money for a wall, but we got people dying on the streets homeless. We got the biggest demographic of people being homeless is old people. And you want to build a wall memorial? I thought you didn't even want to pray because it's a waste of time. Light a candle at home. That's what I do. I light a candle, pray for whoever I know died. Why do we need a memorial wall? Why do we spend more money? That's what, I mean, if they want one, if they need to go over there and reminded of death, go ahead, because I certainly don't. I've seen enough. Anyways, I want to correct what I said because as you know, I do have PTSD and I do ask for my accommodations of my disability. Sometimes I mix things up. And last time I said we were trying to we're trying not to get arrested and to make peace. Okay, that's what I said on the whatever minutes of the 24th. I'm correcting myself.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the room who didn't sign up and would like to speak?
Please come forward.
Please come forward and state your name for the record.
My name is Bruce Barnes, lifetime resident of Clark County. Got a few things I want to speak on. Camp Bonneville, I'm all for law enforcement agencies being able to practice their craft. You know, nobody wants to get hurt. You know, John Hortz back here, the sheriff of Clark County here, is doing a great job, and I can tell you why. I asked him to investigate a man that has ripped off my girlfriend and many other people in this community. One named Rick Hewitt for $1.3 million. He owes her $153,000. He's in the community $1.6 million. But the reason I'm really here is to talk about the lack of prosecution, because the mayor told me that the Clark County Council was in charge of the prosecution and Tony Gulick. Is that true or untrue?
He's independently elected.
I know he is, but does he work for the county, or does he work for the city, or does he work for both?
Selected by Clark County residents.
Okay, so he works for the county. Okay, he's paid by the county. So we need to do something about the prosecution. This man does not prosecute anybody. I'm glad that he is leaving office, but I'm very worried about the person that he's recommending, because that person has worked there for 13 years, and it's probably going to be the same old song and dance, which puts these law enforcement officers behind us in peril, right? There's a lot of different places you can go shoot at, but they're extremely dangerous, and they can't practice what they need to practice. My son just got 6th overall in the world championships of pistol shooting. He's an expert. He could teach the sheriffs probably a little bit about shooting, and I know that they do a great job, but they also do stuff that is non-lethal as well. We need a place for the sheriffs to practice. I understand it's a beautiful area out there, but we've spent millions and millions and millions of dollars to clean that up, and then gave more millions and millions of dollars to clean it up, and it's still not cleaned up. So I support the sheriffs in this. You know, I'm a conservation person. I hunt, I fish, I love the outdoors, and I was glad to see you guys went out to the forestry as well, because the one thing that you can look into is all the chemicals being sprayed by the Department of Natural Resources. I'm actually doing a YouTube and Instagram channel coming up, 52 weeks, a half-an-hour episode. Per episode's called Money Talks and Elk Can't Walk, and I'm going to expose the ugly truth of this and every politician that's had a part of it, right? So you guys need to be the part that cleans it up, not makes it worse. When they're spraying atrazine, Velpar, DL, DH, Roundup Extra, it leaches into groundwater wells and causes massive cancer. We need to probably start looking into that. And I know that Matt over here, he's a hunter like I am. We should all be concerned with what's going on. So anyways, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Else in the room who'd like to speak? Do we have anybody online? We have 2 people online.
Okay.
Caller, you've been sent a request to unmute yourself. Please go do so. State your name for the record and go ahead.
Good afternoon. Kimberly Goheen Elvin, life citizen of Clark County, Washington. Talk about lack of trust is evident, and we will continue the good fight for our republic. Is Camp Bonneville under the Legacy Land Program? If it's not, it should be. The people have given good, transparent reasons to comply to the people's will at Camp Bonneville. Address this at an open town hall and invite all of Clark County, including the Columbia River people and all the people that are around there. But I would suggest maybe putting the shooting range and explosives in the aggregate mine holes that they're making and stuff, and that are soon depleting, and we'll have no more resources there. That would be a great idea. They can figure out how to make sure bullets don't ricochet, right? So I'm still speaking at the Camp Bonneville land, but I've asked for a 5-year no-growth overlay over all of Clark County as our resources, which was evident in the work session today about aggregate being resourced out now, supports this no growth as a depleting resource. We must protect all of Clark County now, our farmland, our timberland, everything. We need you to get out of the GMA and comply to the will of the people. I want to mention this proclamation for the Legacy Lands program, that it says Legacy Lands protects critical fish and wildlife habitat. It preserves our forests and shorelands and conserves agricultural lands, enhances property values, improves water quality, and goes on and on. That's a bunch of BS, because Why are we wanting our land back? Why are the people telling you to stop the growth of taking our depleting resources and using them as you will? That's because we're called big government. That's what's happening here. So how can that be if we still contaminate the Columbia River, Vancouver is, with their sewage line, and here in Left Center, where I'm very concerned about the Lewis River being pumped full of a bunch of SH down our river. Yes, there's, it's polluted, that I'll say, but you have restrictions and it can't go over this amount. It's still polluting our fish, the wildlife, the shoreline, and everything. It is time that you get out of this sanctuary status and do the will of the people and protect our land. Get that 5-year no growth overlay. We're done with all these high rises apartments and everything that you guys have going. So you have timberland sale on here too. I was hoping people would talk about that. We
Okay, thank
are
you. Your
done.
time's up. Thank you.
We have a couple more callers.
Okay.
Caller, you've been sent a request to unmute yourself. Please do so and state your name for the record and go ahead with your comments.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Margaret Tweed, Clark County resident. I noticed today you're speaking about CTRAN and their 2045 plan. What I wanted to urge the county council to remember is on the public input side that citizens have voted against light rail in 2012 in every city in Clark County. Then in 2013, an advisory vote countywide was held and citizens opposed any light rail project in Clark County unless it is first supported by a majority of voters in a countywide advisory vote of the people. And there has been no affirmative vote for light rail ever in Clark County. And yet, the Clark County Council and the CTRAN board march ahead and are pushing forward with light rail. And I want to oppose light rail and to remind the councilors of the opposition of the people. There is a Clark County resolution on the modified locally preferred alternative posted at your website that states that Clark County actually recognizes that 2013 vote and should honor that. And since you have this resolution, it's unclear why the county continues to support light rail in spite of our votes, in spite of many, many people speaking out against light rail at the CTRAN board meetings, and yet it's still forging ahead. Furthermore, I wanted to say that now it has been suggested that citizens no longer have a vote on light rail at all, and I do object to that. I believe the citizens do want their voices to be heard, and that you should hold a vote on light rail as is provided for in state law and was presented to most of the cities in Clark County and to you, the county council, that is the traditional way that light rail has entered into a community. It's always been by a vote. That's a requirement of state law. And so please don't bring light rail without and against our vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another caller. Please unmute yourself on your end, state your name for the record, and go ahead with your comments.
Wendy Cleveland, Sierra Club. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So on 2/12, there was a work session, and in that work session, the council discussed the usage of Camp Bonneville. Specifically, they were, I believe it was Kevin Tyler discussing the gate, having a code and an electronic gate so that they could monitor who was going in and who was coming out and when they were going in, when they were coming out. And I know the sheriff said that there was an importance to be able to use it even after dark for for training purposes and long distance range purposes, such like that. So I haven't heard any updates. To my knowledge, we haven't had any updates on the gate. We haven't had any updates on night usage or what was going on with that. And I believe we have a contract with Safe Fire now, but I am not sure. I'd like to hear more about that because I know they do have the night training there. I'm hearing feedback. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. And I know that District 1 counselor asked about the reuse plan. And he asked who the reuse plan was drafted by. And the response given was the county and LRA. He also asked if the Army consented to the reuse plan. And I looked at the reuse plan that they had. And also during that meeting, it was discussed that 1/3 of the property was going to be used for rec, and 1/3 of that was for a firing range. Now, if the rec is being used for firing range, so recreation or official training do not seem to be the same thing to me. They seem to be two separate issues, and I'm wondering why we're allowing official business in the recreation allowed area of this conservation property. I haven't heard any updates on any of this. I haven't heard any updates about looking for the mitigation from the FBI on their usage fees of upgrades, site improvement. And I know that was prior to Sheriff Horsch. It was the prior sheriff and sheriffs before him. They were getting the payments or keeping track of the site improvements, whatever that was. And I know that the council chair asked about the conservation property and what that entailed. I have not heard any updates to any of their questions during this council meeting. And I would just, before going forward with Camp Bonneville, with anything, I just think that these updates are necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. No further. Okay, that ends the public comment period. Moving on to item 4, old business, minutes of September 24th, 2025. Are there any corrections? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Approve the minutes of September 24th, 2025.
Okay, there's been a motion. Is there a second?
It's
Well,
September
second.
17th.
Pardon me?
Council Little mentioned, or he said, approve the minutes of September. I'm sorry, my mistake. Never mind.
Okay, all right. That was a close one. So it's been moved and I think Counselor Young seconded it. Okay. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. 4.2 Camp Bonneville, current and future use. Kevin and Ken?
Chair?
Yes.
Just question before we start this. I was just curious, like, what is the goal for today? And is there a decision point that any direction that we have to provide today? And then also, I think we have a conversation with FBI at some point. I was just confirming what the timing of that was.
Yes, I'll answer that. So October 22nd is the work session with the FBI per council's request. And I know I shared in our one-on-ones as well for today's agenda item. It's to share what these 3 units use Camp Bonneville for and obtain direction if you'd like us to move forward with negotiating a contract that was put on pause.
Okay, thank you.
And just to further clarify, this does not include the Clark County Sheriff.
SWAT is included. Sheriff is part of SWAT.
Okay.
And the sheriff's office is here as well to provide any clarifications for that as well.
Great. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Council. For the record, Ken Lader, Public Works Director. With me today is Kevin Tyler, our County Lands Manager for the division. We are here today to seek direction. Just the brief background is that we have put on hold at last council direction the 3 agreements that we were forming with these 3 individual groups. you heard today comments on some of the past agreements that were possibly formed without correct authority. I would agree with that. That's why we were going through the process of cleaning up those agreements and making sure that there was no that it was prohibited that any of those agreements would allow sublease or sub agreements in those agreements. So those agreements are on hold as of right now, and the ATF draft is pretty close to complete. I would say the SWAT and MEDU agreements are more at the initial stages from what we were working on. And with that, I can maybe just open it to questions that you might have, unless there's anything you want to add, Kevin.
It seemed that there was a question about what the agencies are using the site for as well. So I can address that. So it's my understanding that SWAT would be using the range similarly to how the sheriff uses the range or the FBI uses the ranges for shooting. And then there is the simulation house that's located at Camp Bonneville cantonment area, and that's used for simulation training. And then there's a officer's quarters that's used for meetings. Those are the primary uses. Beyond that, I know that we have some folks from the sheriff's office here in the building that can add any more detail, but that's my understanding of how it's used currently. ATF does not use the range. ATF does not use the cantonment area. ATF has its own separate fenced area that's a little further down the road from the Camp Bonneville cantonment area. That's less than an acre in size. And they have 3 magazines, which are above ground storage containers that hold things like blasting caps, evidence, and explosives, small amounts of those items, and they're required to check those weekly. And then Metro Explosives Disposal Unit has not used the site since we talked about this last, which I believe was February. And MEDU essentially is the bomb squad, so they test, they use the range for bomb squad related training. What that looks like, I wouldn't begin to understand, but I know they have a robot that they can use to look at bombs, and they have in the past used some explosives at the range, small amounts of explosives. I think that's about all I can say about it currently in terms of what they're currently used for.
Yes, go ahead.
Are we able to hear from the sheriff and folks, user groups that are back here or today?
If you would like additional information directly from them, yes, they're here to answer any questions regarding SWAT.
Be grateful if you're willing to come on up.
But before we do that, I'd like to ask them a couple of questions.
Yeah, and if I could, Counselor, just for clarification on your question, Chair, about CCSO, CCSO does have SWAT members, but we're not addressing the CCSO agreement today. That is a separate agreement as well. So,
And all 3 of these agreements would come, if council chooses to move forward, will come back for council approval because they are with other local government jurisdictions.
But would CCSO come back, or that's been
No,
interdepartmental?
That's departmental, but the other SWAT agreement would come because it has other jurisdictions.
Thank you. Go ahead. Were you finished with your questions? Okay, go ahead.
No, not yet, but
you're
go ahead.
finished. Okay. I would like to have the question answered that was asked by the public. When we say SWAT, what does that mean? Is that one organization that has multiple jurisdictions involved, or is it multiple organizations?
It's multiple organizations. These gentlemen can answer that question more clearly, but Sheriff,
for them?
Vancouver PD, I think there's a member of Washougal PD on there. I've seen a name from Battleground PD on there. So
Okay, we'll wait.
It's in this area.
I know that Council Fuentes has a little more for
That's
you.
actually
you do.
the exact same question I was wondering.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you though.
Great.
Thank you for asking.
Is that on or off now? Good afternoon, Council. My name is Casey Kasberg. I'm the Special Operations Commander for the Sheriff's Office, and that means that I am the county side of the SWAT commander, of the SWAT team, the county commander. First of all, not all SWAT that has been spoken about today is the same. FBI has a separate SWAT team. They come out of Portland. It's the Portland FBI office that has held that contract. So it's the local agents, firearms training, and the Portland FBI SWAT team that uses the range under that agreement that has expired for a long time. So the team that we're actually talking about today is Southwest Washington Regional SWAT. It was formed in 1997. Back then, it was determined that it wasn't financially or reasonable to have a separate SWAT team for the city of Vancouver and one for Clark County. Today, it's the same. There is too many things that go on in different parts of the county. So we are made up of a lieutenant from the city of Vancouver, a commander from Clark County, which is me. We have 10 positions for CCSO deputies, 10 positions for VPD officers. We have one operator from the city of Washougal. We have one medic, Thames medic, which are law enforcement folks that are trained in emergency medicine from the city of Washougal. One of those folks, one of the Thames members, is also from the city of Camas. In the past, we've had operators from the city of Battleground. They don't currently have anybody on the team, but you guys have heard of the Law Enforcement Council, which is the sheriff and all of the police chiefs that sign MOUs regarding major investigations, mutual assistance, and SWAT is a big part of that agreement. It's gone through many iterations, but essentially each one of those agencies within Clark County and including Clark County pays into the regional SWAT team in order to fund it for equipment, uniforms, armored vehicles, things like that. Just like every industry or niche industry, there's a professional organization that works with setting standards across the nation. There's a book for tactical teams that lays out what the best practices are for not only team makeup, the number of team members, but budgeting, training, and also what types of calls that a team should respond to and what types of calls for service that a team is qualified to respond to. So the National Tactical Officers Association has broken it down into 4 tiers. Tier 1 being the very top level team, which we're striving to be because of our call load that's been happening over the last few years. But we don't have the staffing to quite meet that yet. And really it's a liability for the city and the county to not have that level of training, because it means that you can't adequately respond to such calls as a hostage rescue. We have that training, we make up that training, and we do have very qualified operators. So it's not because of the people on our team that we don't have that, it's just the numbers and the staffing for it. The types of calls that Southwest Washington SWAT responds to are high-risk warrant services. So an investigative unit comes up with a case, and at the end of that case, they will have a search warrant written for a location that may have armed subjects, certain amounts of security, things that are high risk. And so there's extra protection, extra time, and extra qualifications needed to go serve that warrant at that house. It's not just all explosions. In fact, most of the time we call people out of houses. We're also responsible for making high-risk arrests, which could be open air, they could be vehicle takedowns, they could be things like that. Quite often, we respond in emergency situations to armed barricaded subjects, and I'll tell you about a couple of those here in just a minute. We train to respond to active threats or active shooters. Doesn't always have to be an active shooter, but it can be an active threat where we are needing to get there to stop killing and stop the dying. Hostage situations I'd spoke of, those are not as common, but it is probably the highest risk event that we respond to. We have had a few in the last 15 years or so in Clark County. That's a situation where the hostage is the primary focus. That's the number one priority of life. Any innocent bystanders that may be around is the second most important priority of life. And then the third and fourth is both the officers and then the suspect that's committing that crime. And we do put that person's safety above even the officers that are involved, because we're trying to create that separation and save that hostage. And then we also perform a lot of different really unique functions, dignitary protection, sometimes when we'll get contacted by the Capitol Police to help secure a scene or a location for federal Congress members and senators. Could be folks from out of the country that are coming in and staying locally in Vancouver for different meetings. There's a lot of things that come up that there's important people that may be at risk. So we go out there and deal with that. In the last 5 years, so in 2022, we responded to 66 missions. That 66 missions would include the active callouts, the barricaded subjects, the things that are occurring on patrol that patrol can't handle. They need extra staff and they need extra armor to deal with. And then the pre-planned missions and those special situations that I talked about. 2023 was a really busy year. They went to 87 of those missions. 2024, we had 55 missions. And so far, well, when I wrote this, we had 36, but we had another high-risk search warrant this morning. So that's actually 37 so far this year. Some of the big issues that we've responded to recently, I'm kind of focusing on the county related ones, is in Orchards off of 145th Avenue, there was a subject that did not live at his father's house, came home, violated a protection order, assaulted his father, barricaded himself in this house, set it on fire, and we were able to surround the house, make a bunch of announcements. We deployed some chemical agents and we were able to get him out. And then our folks actually entered the house with the fire department to extinguish the fire. It was like a bucket of cat litter that the guy set on fire. So it wasn't huge flames that were roaring out the windows or anything like that, but it was definitely unusual for us. Just prior to that, there was a story that was in the newspaper that was just outside of the city limits of Washougal on Southeast 1st Street. There was a man who, again, forced his family out of the house. He was upset that the neighbors were having a driveway paved, and he put on a armored vest and went outside and pointed his rifle at 3 of the contractors that were working for the paving company. And then he went back to his house. So the entire team deployed, which includes, as I said earlier, medics, but also our crisis negotiators. We do have the bomb squad that responds to every call out that we go to, because we have the capability of doing explosive breaching if we cannot safely get up to a house or mechanically breach a house to get into a suspect's residence. Anyway, long story short, we had to deploy chemical agents, We had to use a breaching ram that's on the front of the armor to break the window of the bedroom he was hiding in, and he immediately gave up, which we were very, very thankful for because we thought it was going to end up being a fight. He was a very violent person. A year ago, you may remember that just north of the county shops area, there was a man inside of a residence that was shooting at all of his neighbors. And when SWAT arrived or patrol arrived with the armored vehicle, he fired a .50 caliber rifle out of the top window, broke the windshield on our armored vehicle. But no deputies were injured in that. I want to make sure that you have, I don't want to take all afternoon. I want to make sure you have some time for questions. But again, national best practices set the standards for training. So as a team of the level that we are, we're required to train at least 2 days a month and for 1 full week a year. And for that full week a year, we usually go to the Oregon coast at Camp Rylea and rent the military facility down there because it's secure. It has buildings that we can use, much like Camp Bonneville does. And there's a lot of different positions within SWAT that require specialty training. And so those days are also included in addition to the 2 days per month. We did not voluntarily go to Camp Bonneville. I have been involved in SWAT since about 2004. I was the commander previously from 2017 to 2020. And then just recently, this year, January, I came back to the team as the commander. And it was around 20 or 21, and the county manager was aware of this. We were told by the then Public Works Director that we had to leave English Pit. And it was a very short timeline. We had to pack everything up and we moved everything out to Camp Bonneville. Prior to that, it was really just the FBI that had used that range. There was MADU and ATF as well, but I wasn't involved too much in that. So the sheriff's office didn't ask to go out to Camp Bonneville. The issue that we have right now is there is nowhere else to go. And both for shooting, but also tactical training, which is, I believe Mr. Shaw mentioned, there's a building that has, or no, maybe it was you. Anyway, the old Camp Bonneville, the FBI invested some money in that and placed some movable walls within the structure there so that we can change training up and use the simunitions, which is paint marking cartridges, to hold scenario-based training. So, Sheriff, can you think of anything else?
No, I think there might be some questions.
Yeah.
I know, I mean, we can keep talking about this, but that is kind of the lay of the land. County manager and I talked about this 5 years ago. We were, okay, we have to move from English Pit, and now English Pit is still open. There's going to be a problem there with English Pit as well. We all know that. But I'm just asking today that there's no vote on at least the SWAT, regional SWAT issue, and that we keep talking about this. I know that I can kind of see the handwriting on the wall that Camp Bonneville may be going away. But I think there are solutions for other places, but we just need to sit down and talk about them. It can't just happen overnight, and it takes a little while. But and correct me if I'm wrong, there's no high explosives stored out there on our behalf. They follow the same agreement if it hasn't been signed yet. But we've tightened that down quite a bit, and to shut down the SWAT, that affects a lot of people. They're out there doing a lot of things that people don't know about at 2 a.m. So it's very important that they keep the training up, but I'm very open to, and Kathleen and I were talking the other day about talking about solutions, long-term solutions, not a 2, 3, 5 year, because it costs money to move. And I'm well aware of if CJTC ever builds an academy down here, what that looks like. I'm not a big fan of indoor ranges for one reason was you can't bring vehicles, you can't do some of the training, but that is still an option, indoor range, or there are still Larch Mountain we looked at. That might become an option, but Larch Mountain's at 2,400 feet. So in the winter, it's a problem, but that is still a possibility that we could reopen and talk about that. But for right now, it would hurt us definitely, the sheriff's office and the regional SWAT team, if that were to be closed.
Yeah, and to clarify some of the timelines, in the time that I have been involved, when I first came on the team in the early 2000s, the team trained at Camp Bonneville. And then that ended for a significant period of time. And we trained at, well, any location we could find that would let us go in there. But for shooting, it was either the English Pit public range, they would close it down for the day for us, or we would go to the sheriff's office range. Eventually, we stopped using the public range and we're exclusively using the sheriff's range at English Pit. And then it was in 2020 or 22, I may have the dates wrong, that we were told that was closing. And so we moved everything to Camp Bonneville. ATF, I was never really involved in any of those agreements, but the MEDU did use that for, I don't think they ever stored any explosives out there, but I know they used it to destroy explosives that they had picked up. But I believe they stopped using that I think it was 2020. It might have been earlier than that. Might have been 19. But they hadn't used that for quite a while.
Okay, thank you for that. For me, I thank you for giving examples of all the important work you do. It's critical to our community, and obviously you need a place to train. Part of what I wanted to hear the most is how unique Camp Bonneville is and what the alternatives are. I think you covered that. I want to give you another chance to explain that, because there are no indicators yet that Camp Bonneville is going away as a training facility. There's nothing that we've done to indicate that. But we'd like to learn more about how this facility is unique for the type of operations that you need to train for. And then after that, I have some questions about the future contracts.
That's a fair. I was making an assumption maybe based on some conversation. So that's I would like just be open, and where are we going with it? Do we want to keep it open? Have we restricted enough? Can we want to be good stewards and neighbors to everybody out there as well? Obviously, shooting has sound, right? That's one thing we can't can't avoid. And times we've come down. I think the agreements, if correct me if I'm wrong, they're pretty restrictive. And if there's any access behind closed the hours, they have to get special permission, even from Public Works. I think it was written in there. So we've tightened that down quite a bit. Bonneville is unique because, one, it's far out there. It's already in a shooting zone. So people can go outside of Camp Bonneville and shoot as long as they're doing it in a safe manner. You can't shoot at a house, but it's already in a zone where there is shooting. It's away from the public, so we can go out there. It has a lot of room. We put a lot of money into it out there. It has 50. We can go up to 100 yards that the SWAT team needs to at least qualify up 100 yards with certain rifles. And there are, don't quote me, 25 lanes of shooting that, which is a
there's
lot.
20 lanes that are set up for basically every use. They've got turning targets, so it can be handgun or rifle out to 50 yards. And then there's 4 or 5 lanes that can go back to 100 yards.
And we can bring our cars out there too, because a lot of the, sometimes our shootings are involved from our vehicle or whatnot, so we can use that. That's why an indoor range kind of limits that. And then there's some other scenarios we can do out there with the building search. We don't shoot inside. If you haven't been out there, some of the building clearing that we do, and there's just a pepper ball training. There's a whole litany of training that takes out there that's away from the general public. And it is, you get some snow out there, but it's not as high as Larch Mountain is, that's for sure.
It rains a lot.
Yes. So I'd encourage you, if you haven't done a tour of it as well, some of you have, and we've talked about this, but if that was my assumption, it just kind of feels like from some of the conversations I've heard that Bonneville's going away no matter what. I don't think it should. And if it is going to, at least give us some time so we can talk about it. I think it can be any of the concerns. I think there's discussions and things that are said that aren't quite accurate, and there's different meanings, as you heard, or what does this mean and what does SWAT mean? Is it FBI SWAT or whatnot? So I think I'm willing to have work sessions. The county manager and I talked about this kind of in detail on Monday about what are the options. Is Bonneville still an option? And if it isn't, enough time to find a viable one that suits everybody. Shooting, because David Shook and I, the director and I, he has 75 people that have to be qualified because they do transports. As the jail grows, 5, 10, 15 years from now, and they get more employees, he'll have up to 180 people. He has that issue. Vancouver has it. We have an issue in Southwest Washington with finding a good location to train at. So
both the sheriff's office and Southwest Washington Regional SWAT also have to do nighttime training and nighttime qualifications with weapons. And we've tried to narrow that down, to as minimal amount as we can. But around here, it's October through March that you really have enough darkness to make that training worthwhile.
Thank you. Chair.
Go ahead.
I agree with you, Sheriff Forsch, that there has been indication of this council potentially supporting law enforcement completely moving out of Camp Bonneville. I know I support it, and it started with the FBI. We didn't sign an agreement, extended an agreement for them to continue using the facility. I would support the ATF and MEDU eventually moving out of the Camp Bonneville as well. Now, I'm certainly not in support of CCSO moving out anytime soon, because I understand that you don't have the training facilities to appropriately train to ensure that you provide the public safety that this county demands. Now, I have a couple of questions, Sheriff, maybe you can answer. And I think I've heard you mention a couple of times the Southwest Washington Training Academy or Training Center. Has it been funded? Has part of it been funded yet? Do you know?
no, there was no land. Are you talking about a new facility?
A new facility, yeah.
No, that's still in discussions. I'm worked with the mayor, I work with other legislators. We're talking about that. The land was never donated. And so there's discussions about one day. They just signed a 10-year lease with the current one in off of 39th Street and Burton Road out there at SEH.
121st.
121st,
Yeah.
thank you. And there's actually some talk about, they have a lot of property back there about bringing in a portable indoor range. Again, that can do some shooting. It costs quite a bit. It's about $5 to $7 million, but they could put something there. Again, I still see this as a temporary. And as we go forward, even building a new academy or Southwest Washington Regional Training Center, I think the soonest you're seeing that is 7 to 8 years away. But we are working on that. There was some promise of some land being donated. The state didn't want to give the money for the research until the land was donated. They didn't want to donate the land until the money was given. So we're working through that. The mayor and I just had a meeting and the chief of police and I had a couple weeks ago. So the new legislative session, that's another thing that we're talking about.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it will take a few years to be able to build out that facility that'll serve the entire region. I think in 2025, the legislature was going to be asked for about $3.5 million. It doesn't sound like nothing happened. We're hoping that something happens in 2026 because it sounds like it's a critical facility for all law enforcement here in the region. And so again, I just want to reiterate, my support for moving law enforcement out of this is to ensure that the space, Camp Bonneville, is utilized for open space, wildlife, and recreational use as was intended through the Conservation Conveyance over 20 years ago. And so for 20 years, we have been trying to figure out what to do with that, with Camp Bonneville. So I think it's time to start moving forward. However, again, I want to reiterate, I do support CCSO continuing to use the facility until, you find a better facility that will serve the needs of CCSO.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Chair?
Oh, yes, please go ahead.
I'll just be honest, I'm a little concerned about the risk that CCSO would have that was mentioned, especially when we've had several multi-million-dollar lawsuits that we have settled and paid out in the county. I have a question regarding the academy. If we were to take away the qualifying at Camp Bonneville, would that put us at risk for the academy, the temporary academy, to go away?
No, Counselor, do you think that our recruits are not shooting at Camp Bonneville right now? They're shooting at the old English Pit where the jail shoots
Okay.
right now.
Okay. And if we were to take away Camp Bonneville, do you have any idea of what the financial impact would be training elsewhere, and what are, I guess, what are the options to shoot elsewhere?
Well, that's why it's a long conversation. We get people in a room and we can start working on that. And yes, it's usually everything is a cost, environmental fees and what it looks like. If Larch Mountain, they offered some of their buildings and DOC offered it up when they abandoned it a few years ago. It's at a very high elevation. That is the downfall of that. You could not plan probably December, January, February, maybe even to March with late snow, unless you had a cat up there and somebody was up there maintaining it. So it's a secluded piece of property that's it could be an option. It would be nicer to be in town more. If something were to be built off of I-5, it would still have to be an indoor range. And one other point I want to make is there's other places that do work with the public, like Clackamas County did years ago. They opened up an indoor range, but they also have the public shoot there too. So they pay for it and it helped fund that. A regional academy is not just the academy, it's a regional training center. We'd have people from around the state that pay to come there. So it can be a revenue source eventually. That's what we're looking at. It's not just Clark County and Vancouver paying for this, but are there ways that we can involve the public? Because there are a lot of people that want to shoot. And the places are running out. So if that's something we can consider, I'm not sure how Clackamas County runs theirs anymore, if it's certain days a week or they have certain sides of the range, but it is a public range as well.
I can speak to that a little bit if you'd like. The biggest risk with shutting down that immediately is there's a lack of private ranges, and the private ranges are typically built for public safety so that the public that goes there to shoot can shoot in an extremely safe manner. That's not how we can train quite often. There are cities that are using the company called Safe Fire out off of Southeast First. I believe they are paying in excess of $1,000 a day for 1 or 2 lanes, which means that only 1 or 2 people can go out and shoot their qualification at a time. So there really isn't any training that goes on out there. And there really aren't any other options for outdoor ranges at this time.
Yeah, so my view is a little bit different. Couple things. So just kind of addressing, I mean, that decision lies years in the future, in terms of what the long-term plan is with Camp Bonneville. I am open to anything at this point because we haven't gone through the process of working with the community to see what everybody feels should happen out there. So I don't know, if a shooting range is going to be a compatible use in the future or not. I don't know. The jury's out on that. I'm supportive of it being used, but I do think though that there should, with the agreement, there should be a fee paid to the county that goes into the Camp Bonneville fund. There's a value added there that anywhere else would have to be paid for eventually. I don't know what that would be, but I do think that should take place, and it would be up to the SWAT in the different jurisdictions to figure out how that would tally out essentially. Supportive of allowing the continued use, at least in the temporary sense, but I would say though, when I say that, I mentioned SWAT because I don't know enough yet about the MEDU and ATF, and I think that there needs to be any contract and any activity that is happening at Camp Bonneville should not contribute to pollution, period. So explosives, things like that, unless there's some magical way of containing all of the pollution, it shouldn't happen out there. I'm really confused about what the ATF is doing out there, so I'd love to hear more about that. But as far as SWAT, I would be supportive of continuing to allow that, but I do think there should be compensation I mean, it's a fairly typical thing when one government entity uses the services of another, there's a transfer of funds from, even if it's the same organization, it's one account to the other. So those are my initial thoughts, but again, not increasing to the overall pollution, or at least in a way that can't be easily remedied, or adding minor expense in comparison to what we're already going to have to achieve. Yeah, I mean, I think those are my thoughts on that, but definitely not ready to move forward at this point with ATF and the MEDU. So yeah.
Will we be receiving presentations just on ATF and MEDU? Because I feel like we've kind of conflated things, but maybe we shouldn't have.
Well, today was just to provide a very short overview of how they are using Camp Bonneville today, all three, and get direction on continuing to negotiate contracts for continued use.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Maybe I can help add to Councilor Young's comments and turn it into a little bit of a question about the contracts that you're considering right now or beginning. First, I'm curious, I also think a fee would be appropriate. I'm curious on whether the previous agreements had fees associated with them and whether there's any payments or delinquency on that. So that's one question. And then are there any requirements in any of these agreements for remediation or could be in the future? And then last, what restrictions in general are you thinking of including that haven't been included in the past?
Can work to answer that question. So with the SWAT and the MEDU agreements, we're not to the point where we've fleshed out a lot of those answers yet. So still the ability to, modify those agreements. I would say they're modeled after what you saw in terms of the FBI agreement. And then the sheriff's office agreement was written very similarly in terms of the restrictions and allowed uses and things of that nature. The times that they're able to come and go, things like that. ATF is just for storage. They don't train there. They don't blow things up. They just store, and there is a fee associated with that agreement. So we were negotiating a fee for the use of the small fenced-in area and the explosive storage magazines. So I think we could include a fee. We didn't include a fee with the sheriff's office because it's an internal organization, but there was a fee associated with the FBI. I'm not aware of any fees in the past other than with the FBI agreement there was investment in the property. Public Works also doesn't maintain the shooting range. The sheriff and the FBI maintain the shooting range. So I think those are some of the answers to your questions. Did I miss anything?
Okay, so for the non-sheriff SWAT portion of the contract or future contract, and for the MEDU, as far as you know, there haven't been fees in the contracts before, but we could put them into a future agreement. Okay, I would be supportive of that.
Chair, can I talk about MEDU? I was on the team for 15 years, and years ago, Camp Bonneville was secluded, and we would only take like pipe bombs. Would come across a pipe bomb. You don't want to explode a pipe bomb downtown. You don't have to. So it would be transported out there, and high explosives would be put on it or a disruptor. They have not been using it, correct me if I'm wrong, at all for the last 5 years with high explosives at all. Because high explosives, when they're detonated, especially when there's cloud cover, it's a lot different sound than shooting. So that it's a difference. I can have some from MEDU come and talk or do a presentation, but correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's only used in an emergency situation now, and not even that. Where they need to take a suspected device, and they usually use a water disruptor. They're not using a pound of C4. A pound of C4 is going to get every neighbor out there calling 911. I guarantee it. It isn't. So when you see explosive disposal, it kind of gives this impression that they're putting blocks of C4 on something. That is not happening.
MEDU has as much difficulty, if not more, than SWAT to find a place to train. And those places are getting far and few between now that we've grown so much in this area. So they are simply looking for a place to be able to go where they're not in the view of the public and it's a semi-secure location.
Councillor Belcott.
Thanks, Chair. What was the fee that was assessed to the FBI in using the range? I thought we weren't. I thought they weren't paying us anything. I thought they were just like on an MOU type of arrangement.
In the agreement that was considered by council and not passed, it was I believe it was $34,000 for the year to use the range.
And that's because they were performing the remediation, correct?
There was a remediation clause in the agreement that when it ceases to be a range, when they cease to use the range, or the agreement's terminated, that they would have to pay for the remediation of the range.
Separate.
And that was separate.
This is Kevin McDowell, DPA. I just want to clarify the question. Were you asking about the most recently proposed agreement that was not approved, or the agreement that existed prior to that, which had expired?
Actually, both, if you could address both agreements, what the arrangement was with the FBI, because I honestly just cannot remember.
So the prior agreement also included an investment in the property, and I believe it was $150,000. And we were able to track down some form of payment through the sheriff's office for investment in the range under the old agreement. And then, like I said, the new agreement was $34,000. Both agreements included a provision about remediation. The old agreement was $400,000. The proposed agreement, it was reduced. It was reduced to 300 and change. I don't remember the exact amount.
Okay, so since the FBI is no longer allowed out there and they won't be doing that, will the tab be picked up by CCSO to do the remediation now?
Clark County.
That's what I
CCSO
thought.
is part of Clark County.
Yep. So, okay, so that answers that. And I just want to remind those on the council, if we're charging the well, we're not allowing the FBI out there anymore. But if we were, I just think that's a pretty efficient use of federal taxpayer money for them to do the remediation versus the county. So now that's an additional CCO expense. And then also, if they're not allowed to continue to qualify out there, finding another location, that will be another additional expense. So thank you.
And I'd just like to clarify the prior agreement, which had expired, as far as I'm aware, did not have any specific obligations with respect to paying for or performing maintenance or improvement of the property. There were provisions in the contract that said that the FBI would maintain the property and would commit to improvements, but essentially on a funds available basis. So I don't think that there was a firm dollar figure attached to that.
Okay, so
Kevin-
then CCSO will also now be paying for operations and maintenance out at Bonneville 100%. Okay. So
But Kevin, could you address the former agreement and as far as remediation? Because I think there is a request there and an understanding of the amount that FBI would pay for remediation of any contamination that was or pollution added to the site during their use.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. I just wanted to clarify because I think the question was kind of talking about what were the fees, and I was viewing the fees or for use as being separate from the remediation. But you're absolutely correct. There was a remediation component to the prior agreement as well.
okay. And do we have
That's
kind of an
important.
idea of what the maintenance expense would look like now that the FBI isn't providing that?
Clarify, didn't Kevin, you just say that the agreement that was agreed to in the past for the remediations, does it still hold? Because the agreement says after it is no longer a range or something like that,
That's why I was kind of viewing that as being distinct from a fee payment, because the remediation obligation is only triggered after the agreement expires or after the range ceases to be used by the FBI. Since that's occurred, the obligation to provide the remediation exists now, and it's up to the county to act on that if it wants to work with the FBI and demand that the FBI fulfill that obligation. But it's not something that would be triggered until the expiration or cease of use, which has occurred.
So hopefully CCSO can cover the expense of remediation, because then you have, some of the other people made comments about potential pollution or what have you. So, okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Oh, go ahead.
Just wanted to clarify, because it seems like we're getting some contradictory discussion here. So with the contract not being approved with the FBI, this one that was just in front of us, there is still the obligation on the part of the FBI to pay for the remediation portion of the contract that they agreed to originally at expiration, essentially, which has happened.
Yes, but only to the extent that the environmental damage was caused as a result of activities of the FBI's use of the range.
So, counsel, I'm just going to say this as plain as I understand it. Okay. Yes, there is an FBI obligation to remediate for pollution or contamination caused from their use of the range in the past. Now that the agreement has been terminated, or that we're not renewing it, now that their use of the range has stopped, we talked to you before about there being a timer on that as far as how we see what the contractual limitation would be on that agreement. And part of that process will be, looking at the site, determining what contamination there is, and then we would do the cleanup and we would send them the bill. For that to happen, the question that I ask is, can CCSO continue to use the range once we do that assessment? Is there a pause in there when we assess it, we clean it up, and then we restart the sheriff's ability to use the range? And I think that's the question that is causing confusion. Or as Councilor Belcott was kind of getting to, maybe with a different path, if we continue use of the range, our timer will run out on our ability to get that work done, paid for by the FBI, and then it will be on us to foot the bill for the cleanup.
And there's been more than one entity that's been using it and contributing to that contamination.
Correct.
Okay, so I've been quiet, and I'd like to just sort of try and remember what my thoughts were as everything's been unfolding here. So this is much more complicated. So the authorizing entity for these three potential contracts is the county council. Is that correct? Okay, and the county council has not historically been in that role because agreements were made through previous sheriff.
Correct.
So this is the first time we're looking at all of this.
To my knowledge, that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think there's, just taking a step back, a question that continually comes up from the public: is any of this an allowable use? I think under the original agreement with the military department. So maybe if somebody could speak to that, because I know there were subsequent updates to whatever that was, but maybe just it'd be good to have some answer about, is any of this even allowed?
So we know that the FBI range existed before the property was ever transferred to the county. It's mentioned in a lot of the documents, the Environmental Services Cooperative Agreement, the consent decree, the reuse plan talks about a range. So that use was allowed before and continued through. Whether or not it is specifically allowed by the deed of the property, I think, is another question that now that the cleanup of munitions and explosives of concern has been completed, that there's the ability to modify those deed restrictions to make sure it's crystal clear that it's an allowed use. So we've been talking to the Army about that and what process there is to go through to make sure that it's clear. But
Okay, but right now it's not crystal clear.
I don't know that it is. I don't think that it says one way or the other it's allowed or not allowed, but it's mentioned in all of these documents that led up to the transfer of the property to the county.
Well, that will continue to be a rub with the public. And just, I appreciate all of the information and really learning a lot more about SWAT than I did before. And I think that my sense is, hearing from the council, that learning more about ATF and MEDU would be helpful as well. And then also understanding the process. Well, there's multiple entities within each of these groups. Is that correct? And will we have agreements with each of the individual entities in each of these groups?
ATF would be standalone. It's for
Okay.
their evidence storage. Metro Explosive Disposal Unit is a regional unit that there's a MOU signed, and there's officers from Portland, Gresham, Vancouver. Clark County doesn't have anybody assigned right now, but we've been a part of it for years.
But would it mean agreements with each of those entities that we'd be looking at?
Yeah, it would. The way that we've been looking at this is to kind of model it off of like some of the MOUs or agreements for these task force. That we would essentially have a standard agreement, and then there would be signature pages for each agency to sign. If you don't sign on to the agreement, you don't have access to the property.
And let's see, what else did I have? So my overall sense is that, I agree with Councillor Young that we've still have not gone through the public process for uses ultimately. I don't know if there is a way that this can be a compatible use ultimately. And again, I think in the public's mind, this is a natural area. This is a park. So that leads me to think ultimately these uses should be phased out. And I understand there's a great deal of difficulty of figuring out where you go if this is phased out. And I would support having a task force or whatever come together to really wrestle with that. Larch Mountain, I served on that committee. It's not an easy site. It's a nice site in the summer, but it would be good to take a look at what could be worked out there, because they have buildings, they have some security, they have a lot of land. So I think there's some longer term, we need to put some effort into finding longer term solutions for this. But understanding the public safety need and the need for training, I think it's very important to continue to have access to these training facilities. But then I also think of the public safety in terms of what is stored out there. And I would resist, because I think it's remote, and I don't think we've demonstrated that we can keep that site secured, given the recent theft of ammunitions from what the FBI had stored there, and I think was largely responsible for us not agreeing to continue with their use of the site. But that may be the case with, I don't know what these other entities are storing out there, but that's in my mind a high concern, to make sure that things aren't stored out there, because the public now knows there have been things stored out there, and I just don't feel like we have the ability to fully secure that site. And knowing that maybe we need some longer term solutions, maybe keeping the agreement to a shorter term. I think previously, when Amber was here, she was suggesting a year. A year really isn't going to be enough time to find alternatives, but a year would enable us to revisit this and see how everything is going, especially because we have a history. I think none of us were here at that time, of things not being really getting the oversight that it needed. So that's my feedback.
Chair.
Yep.
I just, and I'm sorry, I forgot your name. I didn't get your name.
Casey Casberg.
Deputy or Commander, right? Did you say
Commander.
Commander. Thank you. Did I just hear you mention a little while ago that Metro Explosive Disposal Units, or MEDU, Clark County isn't utilizing? It's only folks from Oregon?
And the city of Vancouver. They have
And
a
this-
member.
oh, in the city of Vancouver. Thank
We
you.
have a slot there. We just can't fill it right now.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yes.
I think those are good points the chair made. I agree with all of that. I would maybe suggest that the agreements be a little bit longer so that you have some planning ability. Like, I would like to see a 2-year agreement, so at least that you know that for the next 2 years you have a place to do your training. That doesn't prevent us from doing an annual check-in. So I would suggest a little bit longer, and to proceed with drafting up something for our consideration that includes fees and some of the other things we discussed.
So you're proposing a longer agreement so that in 2 years, another council decides to extend it another 2 years and another 2 years. So in 20 years, we're having the same conversation.
I'm just saying that 2-year agreement, I think, would give the agencies more planning horizon to know where their folks can become better at what they do, which is an important thing. So,
Well, and I think what will trigger when Camp Bonneville is released from the cleanup requirements, and Kevin, you'll be advising us on that as well, that then will open up a public process for the use of Camp Bonneville. So, everything will be up for grabs at that time. And we don't know exactly, it'll probably be longer than 2 years, hopefully shorter than 5 years. We don't know. It's been a long haul. So I think there'll be opportunities to really reopen everything. Go ahead, Councilor Belcott.
As a former federal leasing contracting officer, there's many ways to skin a cat when it comes to a lease, but typically, because of what Councilor Little mentioned, you want some time and a cushion in there to kind of look at things. And normally, like, leases are set up, you could set them up for like 10 years, and then you execute the option year as you go. So you can terminate for convenience or default or whatever the case may be. I know that there has been leases that in the county that have not had language set up like that, or it wasn't clear how the options were set up and when they expired. So that could be done.
Go ahead.
One last comment is relative to this discussion, but it's a little bit away from it. When we went out on our field trip, our road trip with DNR, almost every site we stopped at, there were brass shells laying around. And I actually asked DNR, what is the law? Are people allowed to legally shoot out here? And the answer was yes. And I'm like, well, what about like contamination? He says it's becoming an issue. It used to be that such a small amount was deposited around that it was not an environmental, like a major environmental issue, nor did we actually recognize the risks of it in the past. But now it's becoming, more and more people are living here. It's more concentrated. And so you're starting to see various areas of the county with a lot of lead being deposited where it's never going to be removed. There's no mechanism for it. So I'm not suggesting that Camp Bonneville be a place where everybody can go, but the fact that having places available that are run by government institution that will be properly cleaned up is a benefit to the community overall. Just thought I would bring that up because the brass is laying everywhere down there, and I was sitting there thinking the cost of brass. I'm amazed people leave it laying there.
Chair, can you clarify? Are you talking about on Larch Mountain when you went to DNR? Is that what you meant?
No, this was like the Dabbler Forest. It was DNR forest land.
Okay, so it wasn't up on Larch, because Larch Mountain, yes, a lot of people shoot up there. I don't recommend you go up on a weekend unless you're prepared. But one of the sites, I'm not a proponent of Larch Mountain. I'm just saying it's an option. I'd like to add, I would like October 22nd, the FBI to be given a chance to talk about their relationship. I don't know if that's a final issue or not. But there seems to be some different opinions on the council, and so be it. But I don't think there's any way you can determine how much they would cost or should pay, because when we're talking about just the lead cleanup on the berm of basically where we shoot, not the other cleanup of the camp. Some people get the two confused. I don't think you'd be, I think you're being real nice about that. I'm going, how do we determine the FBI lead versus CCSO lead or SWAT? It would be impossible. But I think at least the FBI should be given a chance, because we do have a good relationship with them. They work with us on a lot of task forces. We couldn't do some of the things without them, the local office, Vancouver office. So, and so I think on October 22nd, they also asked that I speak. I'm not going to die on that hill for them, but I'm just saying, I think they should be given a chance. If this is something, if it goes a year and a half or 2 years or however long, but it wants to close, I think they should be given an opportunity to continue shooting out there. I believe they negotiated a contract in good faith. I think we've tightened down quite a few things on all accounts, right? Even for CCSO. And I think we had some good agreements there. So I think they should be given a chance to be listened to on October 22nd.
I think that's on the schedule. But again, for me, it's if there's hazardous materials and weapons and ammo that's stored out there in a site that, and somebody's going to have to convince me that it's securable. It's a concern. So if that could be excluded, non-storage of materials, and it would be good to understand whether or not they've made progress with their investigation. Okay. Is that crystal clear?
So
I think I heard that we're going to continue negotiating an agreement with SWAT. I think I heard that you want to know more about ATF and MEDU. And so we can talk with ATF to figure out how to set that up, to hear from them in terms of what they do out there. And again, just storage, just explosives, magazines. And I know that that's still, what does that mean, right? So we can arrange for that. Metro Explosives Disposal Unit has not used the property for training since we last discussed this, which I believe was February of this year. And they've told me that they could use the property for training and not use explosives. So, the ability to, put on their bomb suits, drive the robot, things of that nature. They could do good training without having explosives use at the range. So, again, those are Metro Explosive Disposal Units. Like Casey mentioned, it's a regional task force, so it would be a similar type of agreement as SWAT, and it's also who we would call if we find something at Camp Bonneville that is, buried or becomes unburied for whatever reason. So having them trained would be a good thing.
Good point. All right.
One more thing that I would ask is when you do bring it back to us, maybe bring your thoughts and ideas about a potential fee, and then the council could deliberate on that at that point.
And I guess one other question is, so SWAT, right now, the sheriff's office has access to the property. They're issued prox cards, just like you have a prox card to get into this building. ATF has to go through us to get on site. And so I need to know if we're restricting access at this point or not. And then also the other members of SWAT, are we restricting their access until we have an agreement signed?
And I will say that next week there is a scheduled training that would be very difficult to reschedule for us.
When do you think a agreement would be coming back for us to sign or agree to?
Probably a couple months at least. I mean, I think because we're working with the sheriff's office, we can negotiate that agreement internally and have it in pretty good shape before we show other agencies.
And just to clarify too, because normally we get parameters and then it just comes to a Tuesday. We don't usually keep bringing them back and forth for negotiations. Am I hearing that you want to know more about the language in those contracts before we actually continue to negotiate? I think, like Kevin said, most of the agreements were similar to what was in the FBI, just that maybe some of the fees and other things might be a little different.
Yeah, and I would just add, as far as the timeline, I think it's not realistic to expect those agreements before the end of this year, just because we are bringing them back to council after having gone through the entire process. It takes a while for us to get it together, and I believe
It's
we're
well over
out
a
at-
year for the FBI contract to be negotiated.
That's right. So this will not be a quick process if that's what council wants us to do.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I would suggest that at this point, like we've had you in front of us. You've explained what you're doing out there, and you also wear a CCSO uniform. So I feel like at this point, I would be supportive of allowing the SWAT to continue usage until we iron out those details. But the other two, I don't know enough about, quite frankly, and I prefer to put a pause on it until we're able to address it.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I understand that concern, but they don't have the opportunity to be in front of us. I would be worried about penalizing them in the middle of trying to negotiate a good faith agreement with them. So I would be supportive of not pursuing these agreements right now as we learn more, and not restricting anyone's access at this point while we're trying to negotiate agreements, and invite them in so that we can have conversations. But we don't know enough about what they have lined up for what their needs are, that I don't feel, as an elected official who has no experience in this area, to make a decision like that would preempt someone from going out there and doing training that their employees need. So I'd be concerned about that.
Council, I appreciate your concerns. And really the only entity up there that is going to affect is the SWAT team, just because of scheduled training. MEDU hasn't used that facility for a long time. They're just looking for a future place to secure. So not having them, nothing would change for them at this point. And then as far as ATF, I'm sure they would appreciate being able to access their storage facility, but it's also not an extreme inconvenience for them to contact Parks or Public Works.
Commander, what are they storing? What is the ATF storing on site?
I've never been in their facility, but I know they have evidence. So if there's explosive residues, maybe explosive devices that they've already disrupted. They will store some of that. And usually it's MEDU and the ATF that responds to a potential bomb anyway. And so they may have a small amount of detonation cord or the blasting caps that initiate an explosive device to disrupt a pipe bomb or something along those lines.
Okay, I'm not sure if we've given you a clear direction here. So the question was whether or not to pause their access or how they gain access.
Yeah, it's whether or not we're pausing access. So SWAT members that are with the sheriff's office can get into the range now, but members of SWAT that are on Vancouver Public or Vancouver Police Department or Washougal Police Department have to be let into the site, and the sheriff's office agreement doesn't allow them to let anybody else in on the site. So are we saying no access until we get a SWAT agreement signed by all agencies, or are we allowing that use to continue until such point as the agreement's negotiated?
So just to be clear, sorry, Commander, really quick, just to be clear, I mean, you've mentioned this a couple of times that MEDU hasn't even used it since February, I believe was the last time they were on site. The ATF is only storing, so they're not out there using a shooting range or exploding stuff or anything like that. I personally would hate to prevent SWAT, any of the jurisdictions, especially local, your jurisdictions, from utilizing the Camp Bonneville to continue doing their training. So it really doesn't sound like there's a heck of a lot going on anyways. So I propose just let's let them continue using it until we have an agreement.
To the county manager, would it be possible for us just to split it and just go through each one and see if there's support for
yes.
for access?
Because
then
because we are
continuing the
hearing.
agreements? Yeah.
I think I know based on it. So for SWAT specifically, okay for using until an agreement with getting their own key card access so that they have accessibility.
Yeah, just for those online who might not be visual.
Okay. And then I do
Thumbs
wanna-
are up on that.
Yes, thank you. And then for the agreement, 2-year agreement,
I think 2-year agreement. I don't think that we'll be opening up the camp for within 2 years.
so you can do longer.
I think 2 years is fine.
Stop proposing longer.
I'm not proposing anything right now. What I'm trying to get is direction.
I think 2 years is good. And then if the council is interested, we can always have a work session to get an update.
Okay, so thumbs up on the 2 years.
Councilor Belcott, we're doing a thumbs up right now on the 2
I
years.
support longer than 2 years, so I'm
Okay.
a thumbs down.
Okay, but were there 3 for 2 years? Okay.
Okay. For fees, do you want that coming back to council before we negotiate the fees? I want to make sure they have all the parameters to successfully negotiate.
I'm indifferent on that myself.
For any fees for usage or cleanup, I don't know if we're going to include that in there. Does council want to have another discussion about fees or leave it up to staff based on what we've already negotiated with FBI or CCSO?
I would leave it up to staff. Leave it up to staff. Thumbs on that. Okay, we got 3 thumbs.
Are there
Four
any other provisions in the contract that is of interest to council specifically? Otherwise, it'll have the same framework as similar to the FBI contract.
I would be interested in what is being stored out there.
Okay, we can address storage in there.
Yep.
Yeah, storage, and again, it's about pollutants, so no activity that contributes further to pollution.
I would say the contract would be for 2 years from when it's signed. So like if it's effective January 1, it'd be 2 years. Be 2 full years.
Well, and hopefully it doesn't take 2 years to get that contract.
Can't promise
negotiated.
that one.
Uh,
Kevin, do you have any other questions on SWAT?
SWAT. No, I don't think so.
Okay, ATF. So they're the ones that are just storing stuff right now. Continue to allow them to store and access their storage area until we get more information from them.
Sure.
1, 2, 3. Okay. Any other? And so we'll get more information on that one, and then we can talk about if you want to move forward with an agreement to continue that. And then the last one is the MEDU. Sounds like they're not really using it now, so keep that one status quo. I thought I heard that they may need that site if they were to come up with an explosive, whether it's in our community or at Camp Bonneville, to take it out there. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think the staff on this side of the table needs to have a conversation about that before we can come back to you guys. So
That sounds good.
Okay, so status quo right now, knowing that it may be very minimal or nothing. It may need some, and we'll come back. Okay, I think I see 3. Just want to make sure we got clear direction. Okay.
Okay.
Kevin, you got everything you need. Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hopefully when we
Thank
talk
you,
about
Council.
this again, it won't take so long.
thank you,
Thank
Council.
you.
Appreciate it.
That's in your district, right?
Okay.
Chair,
Yes.
just the sheriff had a suggestion. At
Yes.
We do have a couple other work sessions that day, but if council's open to it, maybe during the FBI work session on the 22nd, we could include the other 2.
I could arrange. I could
Or
arrange
ATF,
that,
Good to
be
have
here.
people be here.
To at least talk briefly to get a little more information because we can't answer some of these questions on the
Great.
storage.
Yes.
right now, but I could
Great.
arrange
That'd
that.
be great.
We,
That'd
we-
be great.
We do have a,
We can
Yes.
aspire, we can
Yes.
aspire for briefly, but we don't always achieve that.
So plan for a long one
yes,
that day.
because I think we have a budget work session that day as well. So,
Okay, a lot on our plate. Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff.
And also, Chair, before we move on, I failed to ask for an amendment for an executive session, and I just want to make sure I'm transparent. It's a 5-minute pending litigation, potential after action, and it is a timing issue, which is why we need to have that today.
Okay, so 5 minutes potential after action.
And it's pending litigation, the same, yeah, same RCW for the potential.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, then moving on to item 5, new business proclamation, Legacy Lands Program 40th anniversary. Oh, Jordan.
Good afternoon, Council. For the record, Jordan Bogey, Policy Analyst. This proclamation comes from our Legacy Lands staff. At the end of October, it will be the 40th anniversary of Clark County's Legacy Lands program. And we have a request for a proclamation to celebrate 40 years of the Legacy Lands program and all that it's done to conserve habitat, forests, agricultural lands, and provide recreational opportunities for folks in the community. And so they've requested this proclamation. And so looking for council direction on whether you'd like to do this proclamation. And if so, who might be interested in reading it. I believe we'll have some Legacy Land staff available when it is read to receive the proclamation.
I'm all for this. I'd be happy to read it. Or we can split it up if you like. Okay, I do have one question. So it looks like, oh, are there enough thumbs up? Yes, all around. And I do have a question though. I wonder if there will be any celebratory activities associated with this.
We're working on that. It kind of snuck up on us, honestly. But Danielle Cowley, our Legacy Lands coordinator, is working on some volunteer activities. We're also, as you know, heavily promoting the East Fork Reconnection Project and our partnership with the Lower Columbia Estuary Partnership to have that project be successfully under construction. And so there'll be some videos associated with that. CVTV is producing some videos that'll be out in November. And then we also have a work session with you to talk about Legacy Lands in November. So a few things going on, trying to get some stuff out on social media and the website as well.
I think it'd be great if there was something that the public could gather outdoors to see some of the things that we've accomplished. So
Yeah.
be great.
We'll put our heads together.
Thanks. Okay. Moving on then to counselor reports, and Michelle gave me something to remind folks of. I think everyone's been invited to Vancouver City Council Forum that's hosted by NAACP and LULAC, and just inform, I don't know who might be planning to do that. And that's just as a general reminder, if there's things that we're all invited to, or there's a chance that more than two of us might show up, please keep Michelle informed and put it on your calendar. And then knowing that, there's going to be, some conflicts with counselors' times. And if you're not going to be available to attend any of the boards and commissions that you're assigned to, please let your alternate know so that they can attend those boards and commissions, and to let Michelle know as well. And if you don't know who your alternate is, check with Michelle. All right, that's my report.
Chair, real quickly,
Yep.
did we all receive that invitation that you mentioned? I don't recall seeing that one.
You may have, I know I get them now because I signed up for updates from the NAACP. And so I'm getting them both for work and personal, but I don't know if they're blindly sending them to all the counselors.
Okay.
It's currently on your calendar as tentative.
It's on
So I
everyone's.
left it for you to do.
Oh, they may not
Yeah,
have gotten
they
the
did.
email. Oh, you all got the email. And I have a hard copy right here if you'd like to.
Okay, great. Thank you.
There. Okay, just a housekeeping item. Any other counselor reports?
Yeah, I have one. I actually have more natural resources good news, and this one would require a thumbs up, but this is follow up from the DNR forest trip that we had, where we got to see a lot of our DNR trust lands, and there is an opportunity to work more closely with the DNR and have some of our lands considered for a special fund, a climate fund, which we've been calling the SWAP Fund, which is where we would have an opportunity to conserve a parcel of DNR trust land that is now being harvested, and then in turn swap in private land so that there is no interruption of harvest for the community's economics, and we get an area that can be used for recreation and other interests. So what's happened since that conversation is that DNR said we were definitely on the short list or priority list for being considered for that $10 million appropriation that was made in the state legislature. And we have had some information come in from various conservation groups of parcels that might be appropriate for that. And that one came in actually that is on Larch Mountain, which we were just talking about, that has lots of recreation opportunity, lots of trails. There's pica there, there's talus slopes, and also it's not a high timber value area compared to others, and there's no proposed timber sales in the near future. So it might be the perfect place to propose the DNR, and I will be happy to forward that to the whole council so everyone can look at it. But the possibility here is that if we think that's a good area, that we could proactively suggest to the DNR that they consider this area for that swap. There's been 3 appropriations of these funds. This is the third reiteration of that. The first one, the DNR decided which lands would be conserved. The second round, the county actually led the nominations. This round, it's back to DNR, but that doesn't prevent us from proactively suggesting an area that we think would be appropriate for our community. So I guess my question is if everyone would be okay with me sending more information about this area, and that we consider a potential letter to DNR suggesting this area as a swap.
I have a question.
Yep.
And the area that you described, would that be that it's an area that would be purchased by DNR and swapped out for some high value timber area that would not be harvested? I'm not sure if it's which one would be saved.
Yeah, the area in Larch Mountain, which I believe is to the east of the correctional facility, it would be put into a conservation status, no timber harvest status, and in return, DNR would choose private lands to swap into the program that would be harvested for DNR trust entities. And Jordan could probably explain it a little bit more than me.
Okay. I guess what I'm trying to get at is whether you pose this as not interrupting harvest, and so if it wasn't a harvestable area to begin with, I guess was what I was trying to understand.
What was presented to me that you'll all see is that it's a lower timber harvest value to the commercial industry. It doesn't have as many of those bigger old growth trees that are appropriate for electric utility poles, et cetera. And there is no current timber sales proposed in the next couple of years. So there'll be time to swap in lands without any interruption to any, but someday that those lands would be harvested. It's just not any rotation anytime soon. So it's a good place to look at.
Great. Well, I appreciate you following up on this. I'd be supportive of continuing to look at it. Others?
Yeah, I don't know anything about the site, so I don't know if I'm saying yes to the site, but definitely supportive of looking at the process for sure.
Okay. I think there was 4 thumbs on that one. Did you have 5? 5. Thank you, Councilor Belcott.
Yeah, Chair, if I could just ask a quick procedural question for council. And I'm looking at this from the lens of a community member as also as our process internally. In the rules of procedure for adding things to the agenda, it takes 2 counselors to come to the chair or myself can put things on council time agenda. One thing that I'm not concerned, but one thing that I've been thinking about is there's been a lot of things that's come up recently in counselor reports asking for direction. Therefore, it's not on the agenda. Therefore, the community isn't notified of that opportunity to know that this is going to be on the agenda, to be engaged or provide public comment. And so I just wanted to see if council would be open to me, like maybe just drafting a little process that, of course, if there's a timing issue, like you find out today that you have to do something by Friday, that is what triggers it to happen without it being on the agenda. But otherwise, maybe try to get conversations that don't have that timing issue to be more intentional to get it on the agenda for public.
Thank you. I've felt uncomfortable at some points too for things just being sprung on us at the last minute. So that would be, I would be supportive of coming up with a process that can, but I think it's important for us to be able to look at things a little bit in advance.
Okay, and I can draft like a business process for now, and then we can review it next year with the rules of procedure if that's something you want to include in there as well.
Great, thank you. Are there thumbs up on that?
Yep, and just to add to that, for this one, it's discussion. It's a thumbs up about moving forward to have something on the agenda that the public could see and a letter that could be reviewed.
Yeah, and the rules of procedure, if you just went to Councilor Fuentes and said, hey, I have this topic I want to put on the agenda, and he's like, great, then you just let us know and we put it on the agenda. So you don't need the majority of the council to support that.
Okay, progress. Other councilor reports?
Yes, Chair. I have
go ahead.
A few of them this week. First, I was able to attend the what's the term? And I forget the term of it. The investiture. Is that what it's called? Investiture of Judge Lopez. It was an enjoyable experience, and I learned a lot about her that I did not know. And what I will say is the discussion that took place during that meeting and the people that spoke about her life fully solidified that we made a good decision with her. So it was an honor to be able to be a part of that. I was also able to attend the National Day of Remembrance, which was fantastic and miserable at the same time. Hearing the challenges that families have gone through that have lost loved ones is not easy. There was a lot of emotion and a lot of frustration with the current state laws, which is something that I'll probably bring up at some point during our legislative priority, see if we'd be interested in looking at some of those laws and potentially asking for some changes in that. And then last, I was able to attend the grand opening of Lincoln Place 2, which is an extension of Lincoln Place 1, much more literally than I originally thought it was. I mean, you actually have to walk through Lincoln Place 2 now to get to Lincoln Place 1. But it's exciting. I think there's 40 units there. And it's really neat. They've made a lot of improvements. They learned a lot from Lincoln Place 1 and have made a lot of improvements, things that just tended to happen there with the population that are there, damage to the building and such, that they have created new ways of construction. It probably costs a little bit more at the offset, but will reduce a lot of maintenance and repair work in the future. So, and just how to do their job better. So appreciated being a part of that and look forward to having 40 additional beds for people in the community.
Could you mention who would the eligibility for, or just who this population that is served by Lincoln Place 1 and 2?
Yes, so I'm not the authority to speak on it. From my understanding, it's permanent supportive housing. So from my understanding, it's individuals that have experienced homelessness and have needs that require services continuously. And I think they go through Council for the Homeless for placement service, if I understand correctly. I may be way off, but that's my best
That's
guess
good.
at it.
I just wanted the public to be able to understand what there was. So, and thank you for attending that Day of Remembrance. I think that was important for someone for the council to be there. Other councilor reports? I would just mention that I attended the open house for the ag study last night, which was really great. The consultants were there. It's much more complex than folks might imagine, and there was a very good turnout of the local community. Yeah, there'll be another one. I can't remember the exact date, but this is all very accelerated pace. So when that notice comes out, get it on your calendar fast, because anyway, I feel like there's a good thought going into it. Okay, work session requests.
None today.
Let's move on quickly.
Chair. Sorry.
All right. Yes, please.
Well, from the discussion this morning, it sounded like there's still some unanswered questions on aggregate and how what decisions we have to make related to the GMA. And I think there's still some folks that we could hear from our staff as well as from the industry. And I think it would be a good session to have. I know that we're trying to schedule it out way into the future, but whatever we think would be most appropriate to have that conversation, given that we have to make some GMA decisions.
I don't think any of the aggregate decisions today have to be made today in order to meet the GMA comp plan update. And then also there was a work session with the industry a few years ago. I will find that and send it all to you as well. Just so
that would be great. I guess I know there are members of the community that had hoped that they could have a chance to voice their concerns as well. But yeah, that'd be good for all of us to take a look at that previous one.
Real quick, if I may, can I ask Chris to expand a little bit on the process of, mineral resource land overlays, comp plan, how they intersect?
I'm just wondering if we're looking just at the request, that's something that could be brought up during a work session, but I don't know. I'm just
the
concerned
reason
about
the
time.
reason I
Yeah,
ask
go ahead.
is I just want to understand if there. It sounds like there's not. That's why I wanted her to expand on whether there's urgency for trying to incorporate anything like this into the existing comp plan update.
First of all, there is no urgency. There are a number of site-specific requests for surface mineral overlay placement. However, darn, I'm forgetting his name, but the gentleman from DNR who spoke this morning has perhaps a different point of view on the GMA requirements than I do. He said, you know, the county has to have surface mining areas. Well, that's what we call it here. He didn't call it that, but I think it means the same thing. Identified that have economic value to the county. Well, that's not what the statute says. So this was my first time hearing what he had to say and hearing his point of view on it. And obviously, I haven't had time to do any research between then and now. But as I say, that's not what's in the statute. So I don't believe there's urgency. There is no mineral land study occurring now, nor could one occur between now and the time that we are deciding to submit a completed comprehensive plan. You want to study? It'll move it out a lot farther. Also, you know, he's saying, well, just ask the industry, ask the industry. In the past, when the surface mining overlay maps were adopted in the county as a whole, the county used the DNR information to determine where those things should go. You know, as he said, there were some areas that were speculative, some that were hypothetical, and some where there was an determination that there was mineable rock present and it was of sufficient quantity and quality that it made sense to put an overlay there. So they had three different levels of possible mining lands. We used their latest maps when we did the last countywide overlay. And we have asked them every year since then, well, you got more information for us? Nope. And they are working on other parts of the state or on other projects at the moment. So that's the circumstance. In other words, nothing from the state has changed.
Okay, so maybe can I ask you this? So we can adopt, or we can add overlays in between comp plan updates. Is that correct?
For surface mining overlays, they can be adopted upon the request of the property owner.
Okay, not as part of, see, that was my question. See, what I'm hoping to avoid, and you know, we had those requests that I believe we elected not to study.
Right.
And I think that was the appropriate decision. However, what I don't want to end up is a bunch of single projects or single overlays being requested. I want it to be a comprehensive plan. So that means that if we take the time to study this through and identify areas that may have an overlay included, that means we have to wait for 5 years?
So again, I haven't looked at this since the work session this morning. there are procedural differences in the requirements for establishing mineral overlays as opposed to determining what's ag soil or forest soil or none of the above. So we'll have to check that out. I can say that the last time this was done on a countywide basis, it kind of followed a process of, first of all, putting together a task force that, yes, included the industry, but also included folks with other interests, like preservation of the land sorts of interests. It was a pretty broad task force. They actually agreed pretty much, I maybe entirely, on what we have now. But then there was a process of public hearings, and I still have PTSD from the Planning Commission hearing that lasted 4 hours. And there were 4 of them because not every body who wanted to talk got to talk enough. Now, this was when Livingston Mountain was a very hot topic, and it is not now. But it was quite an undertaking.
I feel like this would be a good candidate to stick a pin in, and I would think deal with it after we get this comp plan out the door.
I think trying to deal with it before the comp plan is out the door would be difficult in the extreme.
Okay.
So do we have 3 thumbs up for sticking a pin in it, but still doing it sometime next year?
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Hey, good. All right, other work session requests? Okay, I was trying to move along quickly there, but I got stuck. Okay, public policy updates, 8.1, Northwest Cave Memorial Wall request.
Good afternoon, counselors. Again, for the record, Jordan Bogey. So this one, I was actually planning on getting some information from NW Cave about the request for the memorial wall. I know council had expressed interest in following up on that after last week's council meeting. I have not yet received that update, so we can skip that one and it will come back at a future council time. The next update I have for you is 8.2, which is the legislative delegation briefings that we hold annually. So this is a chance for council to talk with members of our state legislative delegation. So again, that is the 49th, 17th, 18th, and 20th legislative districts. So that is, 8 representatives and 4 senators. And so it's hard to get everyone at one session. And so we will actually be having 2 sessions with our legislative delegation. One will be on October 23rd. The other will be on October 30th. And so we'll give council a chance to hopefully meet with all of the members of the legislative delegation as it was hard to wrangle all of their calendars for those. And so I just wanted to tee that up and let you know that over the next few weeks, we'll be talking about revisiting some of the draft priorities that the council has come up with for the next legislative session, as well as some parameters around that conversation. But both sessions will involve a brief presentation for our legislative delegation, just letting them know, some of the things that council has gotten into over the last year, followed by some discussion of council's initial draft priorities, and then some time at the end for council and the delegation to connect and discuss about topics that are important to you and to the delegation. And so both those sessions will be an hour and a half. They will be calendared, but just wanted to give that heads up to the public as well as council to let them know that there will be those 2 sessions upcoming.
Great.
And then 8.3, CTRAN 2045. Some CTRAN staff last week presented to some members of the county planning staff. I was able to attend as well. And just wanted to, let council know, although I'm sure most of you are already aware, but also the public, just let them know that CTRAN is working on their 20-year plan, sort of concurrently to how the county is working on its comprehensive plan. And they had an open house that was open for about a month and a half. That just ended at the end of September here. But they are also, they have a CTRAN 2045 website. Folks can go and look at what CTRAN is planning in terms of service provision for public transportation in the county over the next 20 years. And though their virtual open house did end yesterday, there are still opportunities that folks can comment on the plan at any time via the comment portal on the CTRAN 2045 website. And so I just wanted to give an update to let folks know that that is still going on, and to encourage folks to comment and review that plan. I know CTRAN is hoping to get as much public participation as possible. And then 8.4, wanted to give council an update on some of the upcoming timber sales that are happening in the county. And so there are a few of note. The sales that were paused while DNR worked on the commissioner's plan to conserve the 77,000 acres that we heard about on the trust land tour and from DNR recently. Now that pause is ending, the sales that went through the SEPA process are moving forward. As we learned from DNR, it often takes 5 or 6 years to put a sale together and move it forward. And so the commissioner has decided that, all the work that's gone into the existing planned sales shouldn't be scrapped, and those should move forward, but that conservation should take place on parcels that could have been harvested in the future, but were not currently in progress. And so 2 of those sales that were paused but will be moving forward are the turnover timber sale. And so that is scheduled for auction on November 20th. It is going to the Board of Natural Resources for approval for that auction on the 7th. So in just a few days, early next week, that will be going to the Board of Natural Resources for their approval to go to auction, planned for the end of November. And then the Dendrophobia timber sale, that is going to the Board of Natural Resources on December 2nd, and it is slated for a January auction date of January 29th of 2026 next year. And those were 2 sales that had been paused while DNR did their review of potential conservation areas. And then the third sale I want to mention to council today is the Copperhead timber sale. And that is going to the Board of Natural Resources also on December 2nd, also slated for a January 29th auction. And with the Copperhead sale, that SEPA notice was actually just released today. I have forwarded council that SEPA information if you'd like to review it. And I want to say thank you to DNR staff who independently also forwarded me the information. I'm also now on the mailing lists, but DNR staff has been responsive, in response to council's interest. And so I thank them for being proactive in keeping me in the loop on that. The comment period for the SEPA for that is between October 1st. So starting today, it's a 2-week window. As we know, they're fairly tight timing. The window closes on October 15th to provide any comment on the SEPA documentation for that sale. And so I just wanted to give council a heads up that those are the sales that are currently slated to move forward in the county.
Thank you, Jordan. One thing that was mentioned during our DNR tour was I know some counties have set up committees, or they work with DNR, the junior taxing districts, to better understand and coordinate when these sales might be coming up, just in terms of their budgeting, because I think otherwise it's just money shows up. So could we follow up and find out a little bit more about what those committees do, and we could maybe I'd be interested in communicating with some of the junior taxing districts to see if they'd be interested in participating. Thoughts?
Yeah, Chair, I think that'd be a good idea. The other thing I'd be interested in finding out is exactly how the county uses our portion of that funding. I don't know if there is a specific fund that it goes to and it's used for something specific, or if it just goes into the general fund. I'd like to know what happens with
Actually, that's a good point. We are one of those junior taxing districts that benefit. Would others be interested in pursuing that that committee, whatever, finding out more about it and whether or not it'd be useful? Yep, I see thumbs up all around. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Anything else?
Those are all of my updates for you today.
Okay, thank you. That brings us around to the executive session. We have 3 items. 9.1 potential litigation, RCW 42.30.110, paren 1, paren little I, for 10 minutes, no after action. 9.2 collective bargaining, 10 minutes, no after action. And 9.3 pending litigation, RCW 42.30.110, paren 1, paren little I, for 5 minutes with potential after action. So that's 25 minutes. And
I
yes,
could
go ahead.
use just a couple minutes too.
Oh,
before
okay.
we
Well,
start.
let's take 5 minutes and then it would be 5 to, what is that? 4. 5 to 4 already. All right. I was just shocked by the hour. All right. So we'll return then.
Hello, the chair has asked us to announce that the executive session will be extended for an additional 5 minutes and open session will reconvene at 4 p.m. Thank you. Hi again. The chair has asked us to announce that the executive session is going to be extended for an additional 5 minutes and open session will reconvene at 4:05. Thank you.
Okay, council has returned from executive session. Is there a motion?
Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve and accept on behalf of the county the release and settlement of all claims document dated September 3rd, 2025, and signed by Terry Ram, and authorize the county manager to sign.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. That completes our business during council time, and without objection, this meeting is adjourned.